This podcast is brought to you by Bonus Room Productions and We Own This Town.
I am Jason T. Meares, Esquire.
I'm Kelly Hoyle Bolick.
And we are
DIMAS Today.
How's it going, Kelly?
Hey, JT. Just keeping it calm, looking at the blue sky out the window.
It's beautiful fall weather. It's the middle of November. Thanksgiving's coming up. Time to maybe not be with your family, but still time to celebrate and be thankful for everything. Yeah.
Lot to live for.
Yep.
Lot to live for.
Yep. Lot of good things going on in the world.
You want to know what one of the best things going on in the world is?
Yes.
Our interview with actor William Sadler.
Guys, we could spin this for you, but just take a listen.
Excellent!
Bill Sadler, thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to be here.
If we could just start off, we'd love to hear how you initially got involved in acting.
Well, I grew up on a farm just outside of Buffalo in a town called Orchard Park. I spent my whole childhood running around in this barn. We didn't have video games, but my friends from down the road, John Messer and I, we would just make up stories. We'd pretend to be the guys from combat, from whatever TV show we had just watched or movie we had just seen. We'd run around the barn and dive out of the hayloft and with our BB guns and come up shooting. And then I guess when we outgrew that, I started doing stand-up comedy in somewhere in high school. I joined a folk group. I started a garage band called the Night Riders. So I kept trying to get on stage. And then I had an English teacher named Dan Larkin who said, why don't you try out for the senior play, which was Harvey at the time. And I got the role of the lead role of Elwood. That was really my first taste of it. After that, I did a Pulitzer Prize winning. There was a community theater nearby that did The Subject Was Roses, which is this beautiful Pulitzer Prize winning drama. And after that, I was just hooked. I decided that was much more fun than writing my own jokes and playing the banjo and doing stand-up around Buffalo. So I drifted off into acting, studied it at undergraduate at Geneseo for 4 years, and then went to Cornell and got an MFA in it for 2 years. Then went to New York and did it for another 11 years before I did my first movie. That's the cliff notes of how I got into acting.
Let's see. Did you make the jump after Cornell and get cast in Biloxi Blues?
Biloxi Blues it took a while. I moved to New York and did just show after show after show, all off Broadway. And then I did a season at Trinity Square, a repertory theater company. I did a season down in Florida with a rep company. I played Hamlet at the Colorado Shakespeare Festival. There was a lot of jobs out, acting jobs in the theater before I finally got to Broadway, which I did in about 85. Yeah, something like that, 85. And then I did Biloxi Blues for a year and a half on Broadway. It was all theater before I did my first movie.
And what led to your first role and making the jump into film?
Well, the first movie was Project X with Matthew Broderick and Helen Hunt, where I played the head of a research project that trains all these chimps to fly flight simulators, and then we nuke them with radioactivity and see how well they do as they're dying. That was the plot of the movie. But that happened, I'm pretty sure that the leap happened because I had just spent a year and a half with Matthew in Biloxi Blues on stage and, kind of playing the heavy in Biloxi Blues. So it seemed like a natural jump. And I have to say, it took me a few movies to figure out, how to act for the camera, because it is a little different. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is the same, but they're trying to take your picture now.
Sure.
So you can't jump around like you used to.
If I could ask you something, because this is really interesting with the stand-up comedy background and the banjo and the folk band. What's it like? So much of your career has been spent playing the heavy, right? Like these hardcore authoritarian figures. Like you ooze authoritarianism when you're in that mode. What's it like being a guy who was doing stand-up comedy and playing the banjo and being in a folk band and then acting like that? I realize it's acting, but is it just a little bit odd at some points?
I think I come by that from my father, who was a bit of an authoritarian as well, or he could be when when the kids got out of line, he could tighten up, and I don't really know. The first movies that I did though with Project X and Hard to Kill, Hot Spot, Die Hard 2, I think that's like the order of them. And I was once Hollywood is like that. Once they see that you're good at something, they're happy to keep you doing that. I guess they saw right out of the box that I have an intensity, or I could bring an intensity. I could make I could be frightening that way. And so they cast me that way again and again, even though in my private life, there are lots of other colors, and I still play music and write songs, and I'm one of the nicest people I know, I think. But I was more than happy to use that to get my foot in the door. The Die Hard 2s and so on. And then Bogus Journey came along, which was a chance to be funny again, which I had done on stage a lot, but I hadn't yet done it in films really. So I jumped at it.
How did the script come to you? Was your agent like, "Hey, there's this role. It's not quite what you've been doing, but are you familiar with?" How did that?
It's not quite. It seems like a natural progression. I killed chimps in Project X. Then I killed all those people as Colonel Stewart in Die Hard 2. Then I killed everybody who ever lived as dead.
That's perfect.
No, it was a great trend. I think I got the script from my agents at the time, and they didn't really know what direction to go with the role of Death. I think they were looking at people like Christopher Lee. They wanted somebody craggy and ancient and scary looking, who then devolves into a babbling, a funny sort of needy character. So it was really kind of perfect when the transition, because the Reaper in Bogus Journey starts out being this terrifying figure. You should be afraid of him at the beginning when you first meet him. The guys have just been murdered, and now, here's death.
Right.
But almost immediately when they challenge him to the games, it just all goes to shit. He's got he gets petulant, he gets frustrated, he tries to cheat, it all goes south, and much humor follows. So it was a great transition.
We were talking earlier about when we could first remember seeing you on screen, and for myself, it was actually your role as Dwight in Roseanne. And I find that interesting because I remember seeing that, and then Hard to Kill and Die Hard come out, and I'm like, how is this the same guy? Yep. So really it made seeing you and the Grim Reaper kind of getting to mix the two, as the Grim Reaper, getting to mix the two was great.
It's always been I just always ask myself, what would Meryl Streep do?
There's no brighter guiding light than Meryl Streep. I mean...
No, yeah, exactly. And she's different. She's completely different from one role to another. And so is Dustin Hoffman. And so all my heroes, all my favorite actors take on these characters and get lost in the characters. And the better you can get lost in them, the happier the outcome. So, I've always felt that that's what acting was. And I've been fortunate. They've thrown quite a variety of roles at me. So it's been it's been fascinating.
Yeah, it's really awesome to watch. I mean, one of the things that's been neat, just a little tidbit about Bogus Journey, is seeing all these folks who just in the past year realized that you had that role as the British guy at the very end of Bogus Journey as well. Like, I on the Facebook groups and stuff, somebody will pop up every couple of months and like, did you realize that William Sadler is also this guy? And I'm like, yeah, dude, we did, but welcome aboard. It's awesome.
It's funny. I asked for that actually because I had spent so much time in the makeup chair. It was like 3 hours of makeup and I was sort of unrecognizable. And I said, is there some place in the film where I can, I could show up as a clerk in the hardware store or something without the makeup? And that's what they came up with. And that's my wife and daughter in the scene as well.
Oh, cool.
I did not know that.
Doing the dance.
Oh, that's fun. What a neat way to get them involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a sweet little, I did. I asked them if there was a place I could show up without my makeup for just a second. And that's what they did.
I had read in Bogus Journey, because you were having to deal with the makeup and that they had to, I think there was a lot of effort into the makeup not getting on your robe, that it kind of prevented you from being able to be as social with everyone on set, the rest of the actors.
Yeah, well, you can't really sit down and you can't lie down. It was difficult. The first, there's always this flurry because the makeup is white and the robe is black, that the minute you turn your head and you wipe a little bit of the white makeup off on this black. And there was always a team of wardrobe folks around me with some kind of toxic chemical. They kept wiping the Carbana or something. It smelled like lighter fluid. Ooh. And they would get the white off and then say action.
Well,
it was challenging.
We're glad you didn't, get poisoned to death with any bad makeup or something.
Yeah.
I know that would have sucked.
Talk about a bummer.
Yeah.
Had you had experience with makeup or prosthetics like that before? Was that your first real makeup heavy role?
I had in the theater. I had used fake beards and some of that stuff before, but no, that was my first. That was my introduction to prosthetic pieces and ball caps. And if I had it to do over again, I'd shave my damn head. So
Make it a little
all
bit
they
easier.
have to do is they just have to paint it. You don't have to wear this bathing cap of latex or whatever it was.
Lesson learned. Something that's fascinating to me, after Bogus Journey, Alex Winter does Freaked. Was that something that he approached you about during Bogus Journey, or was it like he was doing it and like, hey, I'm working on this thing, we'd love for you to be a part of it, like afterwards? How did that come together?
As I recall, he came up to me afterwards. He contacted me just as Bogus Journey was launching, or maybe slightly after that. He was really busy during the filming of Bogus Journey. He couldn't really focus on this other movie, but it turned out pretty great.
Oh man, yeah. It's so fun.
Everybody did it for nothing, and it was just really it was really fun. And it's funny. My daughter, who's 30 now, keeps bringing it. She keeps wanting Alex to see if we can get it released in DVD or streaming or whatever they do, whatever you could do with it, that resurrect it again, because it's sort of a cult classic, I guess.
And I think now's the perfect time for it. I mean, like there have been a couple screenings out in LA. I mean, not everybody's doing a lot right now. It'd be a perfect time for Rhino or somebody. Yeah. It would be a great.
It would be a great time. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a pretty funny movie. I loved the island of Santa Flan, patron saint of creamy desserts.
just so weird and bizarre and delightful. I mean, just like such a fun, weird movie. It
just didn't shy away from it at all. I thought Alex did a phenomenal job with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you would think maybe Shudder or one of the streaming services could pick that up.
Yep.
Would be great.
Don't you think? I mean, it would probably take off today. It would make some money.
Oh, for sure. Around that time, too, Shawshank Redemption came out.
Yeah. How did you get involved working with Frank Darabont?
I met Frank when I did the very first episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Mm-hmm. The pilot.
For HBO. There were 3 episodes they shot all at once and released as the beginning of that anthology. And mine was the first one, The Man Who Was Death. And it really was my introduction to all of those folks, to Walter Hill and Bob Zemeckis and Joel Silver. Shortly after that, cast me as Colonel Stewart in Die Hard 2. He was the producer on that. But Frank Darabont was one of the writers on Tales from the Crypt.
Okay.
And he came up to me on the set one day and said, I'm going to do this movie based on a Stephen King's novella called Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. And I'd like you to be in it. And he didn't have a script yet, I don't think, but he gave me a copy of the book of the anthology, A Different Season, I think it's called. And I thought, and I thought to myself, sure you'll make a movie of this, because every cab driver in LA is going to make a movie. Everybody's
Sure.
Every show is going to Broadway, and everybody's got a movie that's going to get made. But true to his word, a couple years later, he was casting it at Castle Rock, and it happened. And we spent the summer in Mansfield, Ohio, in a prison, shooting the Shawshank Redemption, which ended up being this sort of amazing cultural touchstone of a movie.
Oh, completely. I was such a diehard Stephen King fan back then, and it had always been for years that Stephen King movies were never as good as the book, right? Just bomb after bomb, and then Shawshank Redemption just completely changed that.
No, I think Frank did an amazing job, really an amazing job, and it wasn't his very first movie. I think he'd done maybe a horror movie or something before that, but he was pretty green at directing. For a short time there, Tom Cruise was interested. Lots of people were interested in doing it when there finally was a script. My understanding was that Tom Cruise and Frank didn't hit it off. Frank wasn't interested in making, a Tom Cruise movie, and Tom Cruise wasn't interested in a first-time director at the helm.
I think that worked out for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It's funny though. Everybody knew it was a strong story, and it's really it's a wonderful story. But I don't think anybody realized that it was going to move people the way that it has. That it was going to catch on with audiences, it opened in the movie theaters and then closed like 2 weeks later. Because nobody went to see it. It's a prison movie without Tom Cruise, with this funny name that nobody knows what a Shawshank is.
How do you redeem one?
Redemption sounds vaguely religious, and it just had lots of things working against it. And then the nominations came out, and when it was up for Best Picture and so on, they put it back out in the theaters, and I think people discovered it on video rentals. I think it became a huge home video thing.
Yeah, and it feels like it's always on cable somewhere now.
It's the arc of that movie and the story of the movie itself really reminds me of It's a Wonderful Life, where it came out and people weren't really quite fond of it, and then because it got aired on TV in the holidays and kind of became a staple, people really had the chance to discover it. And I think the same thing happened with Shawshank on like TNT and TBS. I think those channels.
I didn't realize that It's a Wonderful Life had that that trajectory too.
Yeah, it in the beginning, it wasn't really, people didn't think much of it. It was kind
Right.
of in and out of theaters and a footnote, but then it got rediscovered by some guy on a UHF channel and started playing it, and, it just became a holiday staple.
Well, if you think about it, you go to the movies and you see a film, even a great film, you get moved and you laugh, you cry, you kiss your $7 goodbye, and you go home. But you don't see those actors again. It could be years before they pop up again in something else. But when something's in your living room, when a movie happens on your TV in your living room or your bedroom or where, it's all of a sudden it's a much more personal event. It's like it's being shown just for you. I think people react differently. You can also, if you rent it, you can watch it again. It shows up again and again, and the repetition helps. It's a weird thing. I did all these movies, and occasionally people would recognize me. And then I did the TV series Roswell, and all of a sudden I was in people's living rooms every week, in close up. And that's what happened. I think audiences that get to know you on television feel like they really know you. I mean, it's a much more intimate relationship than, last April, I went to the movies and saw, I forget his name, and he was great.
So let me ask, you stayed involved with some of these folks. You did Demon Knight and Bordello of Blood, right? Which were both Tales from the Crypt productions. And then Frank cast you in Green Mile. Again, another one of those Stephen King novels that actually it turns out to be an even better movie. It is maybe not quite as the cultural impact as Shawshank Redemption, but I still think it's a fantastic film, which I think a lot of that was shot here in Nashville, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was. It's one of the moments in my career that I don't know how often this happens for people, but where you can point to a specific moment when things just took off and your career took a completely different trajectory. When I auditioned for the Tales from the Crypt, which is where I met, that's what led to Die Hard 2 and Frank Darabont and Shawshank and Green Mile and Walter Hill movie, Trespass, that I did, and so on. I went in and auditioned, but the audition for that little TV pilot was at Fox Studio in LA with a casting director named Karen Ray. And I went in, they sent me in to read for the cop at the end of the episode, who says, his whole role is, Mr. Talbot, you have the right to remain silent. Everything you say can be used against you. And I did, and I read it for her. And then I said, what's up with the role of Talbot, this executioner, the lead guy? And she said, oh, they want a name for that. They're looking at, John Malkovich and Kurt Russell, and they're looking for and I said, oh, all right, thank you. And I left, and I got halfway across the parking lot, and I hear she stuck her head out the window of the office building and said, Bill, come here. The window was on the first floor. And I came back up to the window, and she handed me the sides for Talbot and said, here, come back on Monday at 11 and grease your hair and black out your teeth or something, because you're too cute for this. And I'll put you on tape for Talbot. And she did. I came back and did the thing on Monday, and Talbot was all these big long monologues right into the camera, talking to the audience about, electricity and how fun it was. It's clean. And he's got this like devious sort of sense of humor, this really dark sense of humor about executing people. And I did it, and he showed it to them, and I got the role. They paid me, I think, $1,700 for the week's work. But all of a sudden, everybody in that little circle knew who I was. And it's just, I've always found it interesting that I can point to that one moment when I took a chance and asked for it, and she took a chance and said, I'll put him on tape, if it sucks, I won't show it to anybody. But, it's not like a star was born, but doors just started to open that I had no access to before. I had done all this theater in New York, and unfortunately, that doesn't mean much of anything in Los Angeles. They want to know. They want to know what was your last film.
That's so neat that you can look back to that moment.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into talking about Face the Music, I wanted to ask you about a couple of projects you did that came out last year. Maybe the best horror movie I've seen in the last 10 or 20 years was VFW. And I try to tell as many people as I can about this film because it is so perfectly casted and the story is so great. How did you get involved in that? And what was it like working with Marty Cove and Fred Williamson and Stephen Lang? And did you know these guys before?
Well, that was really the big draw for me. Was it looked like a fun sort of action script, but what I was really excited about was that I loved the idea of all these old. I'd worked with Stephen Lang. We did Shakespeare in the Park together in 1976.
Wow!
and then we were together in. He was in Project X with me, the film with Helen Hunt and Matthew Broderick. I had worked with Marty Cove on a TV show called Martian. Oh, I forget. Anyway, David Patrick Kelly and I did a musical together in New York. So I had. It was really that. It was this ensemble of character actors, of wonderful veteran actors, who, I guess there could have been, petty jealousies and whose name is above who or whose chair is higher. But they had so little money to shoot this thing, and we shot it in like 18 days.
Oh, wow.
It became this, I don't know, it's hard to describe. There was so much love and respect floating around on that set. We all knew each other. So there's ad-libbing going on left and right. And we were just having a ball. And I think it showed. I think the movie, that's the surprising thing about the movie, is that this group of vets who come under attack, you believe from the get-go that they like
Yeah. There's a brotherhood there.
There's a brotherhood there. And as they start to get picked off by the bad guys, it hurts, It means something. There's something to hook the audience in, because these guys so clearly like each other. The relationships are real.
Hated to see poor George Wendt bite the big one there early.
Spoilers, everyone.
Spoiler alert. No, I thought it was a pretty remarkable movie for a.
Yeah.
It was made. They made it for $1.98.
I really hope that gains some cult status here over the next coming years.
Mm-hmm.
And then also that year, what really caught my eye, because I think I had seen The Highwaymen prior to VFW. You don't have very many scenes in that. You play Clyde Barrow's father, but you have one scene with Kevin Costner that is just a masterclass in acting. Two great actors, toe to toe. I thought it was fantastic. It is what I remember from watching that entire miniseries.
Thank you. Folks who haven't seen it, his name is Henry Barrow, Clyde Barrow's father. He knows how the story is going to end. He knows Costner's character is going to hunt down his son eventually, and that's what I was. Again, I asked, what would Meryl Streep do with this scene? Sorry, Meryl. But no, it was just a beautifully written moment, and he what he does is he says, I know you're going to do it. Just do it quickly, do it fast. It's going to hurt, so just do it fast. And I thought that was just a beautiful little moment for a father to know how his son is going to die and who's going to do it. Poignant little moment, really beautifully written and nice. I had no trouble at all sinking my teeth into or imagining myself in a situation like that. I guess that's what I do as an actor. Mm-hmm. It's one of the reasons in The Green Mile, when I play the father of the two little girls who get murdered, I've often thought that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because it's just not fun at all to imagine to put yourself in that position as a parent. What if that was your little girl? He comes out on the porch and there's blood and the screen's been cut. And from that moment on, I can't even imagine how terrified you have to be inside as a parent, hoping against hope that it's not what you think it is.
That's got to be a tough headspace to get into. Every day on set.
It's an awful place to be. I remember thinking they didn't pay me enough for that.
Well, and speaking of death,
nice transition.
Thanks. I've been saving that one in my back pocket. So,
you guys are smooth.
Yeah. Face the Music. Like, there had been rumors about the third Bill and Ted movie for over a decade. We've kind of covered how Chris and Ed had convinced Alex and Keanu, or everybody gotten together. But at what point were you approached? Or I remember there was a tweet that you had at one point, and you're like, "Guys, I'm all in," or something, and the internet exploded. At least Bill and Ted internet exploded, and we were thrilled. But had you talked to them beforehand, or how did that come about?
Ed Solomon, one of the writers, Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon did the writing on it, and Alex, I think, as well on this third one. But Ed contacted me. Ed got a hold of me, 28 years or something after we did Bogus Journey, and said, "I'm writing a third one. Would you be interested in doing it?" And I said, "Absolutely," because I had so much fun playing the Reaper in Bogus Journey. It was just the idea of revisiting that character was I couldn't pass that up. And and there was a lot of back and forth. I think they had a lot of trouble getting it financed, getting it actually getting it together to get it made. In my heart of hearts, I had said yes years before. Of course I'm going to do your goddamn movie. Of course I'll do it. And then, the negotiations started when they actually got close. And then you have to pretend that, I couldn't possibly do it for that. Then you're in a terrible negotiating position, because I've wanted to do another one since we finished the second one. He's just really fun to play. He's a great, fun character. Sort of takes over my whole being, and I can't shut him up once I'm in it, I'm in it.
I think there's pretty much no question in most fans' mind, and I'm still getting used to saying that we have a Bill and Ted trilogy now, but I think you're easily the most beloved character in the trilogy.
Yeah,
I really do.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Thank you. Thank you.
It had to be fun, I imagine, to play Death again, being unburdened of the frightening mystique. Like, he could just be the weirdo that he became at the end of Bogus Journey, and he just got to be that weirdo the entire time.
Yeah, well, right. He didn't have to be the terrifying figure that he was in the first one. The audience already knew who he was. Mm-hmm. What did he say? I love show business. He's like totally hooked. What I really liked about it was the idea that he had gone off and had a solo career where he released albums that were just the bass. It's just bass. And they didn't sell at all. So it's like he tries to have this, it was just great. It was like this terrific showbiz story his solo career just craters, and now God is punishing him because he wasn't supposed to let anybody come back, and everything's all turned to crap, and he's stuck in this place. And no, it was I thought that was a really fun a really fun way to get back to him, because at the end of Bogus Journey, he's in the band. He's
right.
one of the Wild Stallions, and then they start showing these newspaper headlines and death goes off on his own, death in drug rehab. It's like he just like falls flat on his face. It was really fun to explore all that.
Another really cool reversal that I really appreciated in Face the Music was toward the end, your interaction with Anthony Kerrigan, Dennis Caleb McCoy, and it's almost like he has become the Death from Bogus Journey, and you were kind of guiding him into trying to guide him into how to be cool, kind of like Bill and Ted did for Death in the second one.
With just a smidge of that petty, like, you're not going to be replacing me in the band. Like, hold your horses.
Just go over there and rehearse your dance. I thought that too. I thought his character, he was brilliant at that character too. It was, and it could not have been easy at all under all of that gear.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he found this really lovely, vulnerable, childlike thing that was so endearing. But again, he's just like the Reaper in Bogus Journey. He starts out being the killer robot. He's being sent to murder them, right?
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's the threat, and little by little, he gets sucked into the band. He gets sucked into the, He gets sucked into the Bill and Ted world, and
yeah, resistance is futile. Yeah.
Exactly. He ends up being as beloved as anybody.
Did you ever have a day on set where you're like, man, at least I don't have to put on all that crap? Like looking at Anthony Kerrigan, because I just can't imagine.
I had a fair amount of crap on.
Yeah.
I did. I felt bad for him. It was I don't think it was easy to sit down. It was New Orleans in August.
Brutal.
Which is, oh my God, I've never felt humidity like that. It was remarkable. We were shooting at night, and the temperature never went down at all. It was like, 98 degrees at night. You're just pouring sweat. Anyways, I'm really glad we got to make the third one, because I also felt that it rounded out the whole trilogy. Mm-hmm. It became a trilogy.
Yeah.
And you got to see how it ends for them, for Bill and Ted.
Yeah, I really think it was done right. The other week we spoke with the music supervisor for Face the Music. His name's Jonathan Leahy, and he pointed out something to us that we did not realize, and wondering if you realize this. In the film, you do bass air guitar, and that is the only air guitar that's not Bill and Ted in the entire trilogy, and we just thought that was a great touch.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Which it's kind of a beautiful little grace note, because it shows that Death really is in the band. Yeah. He is one of them,
Well, he was, until he started doing those 40-minute bass solos.
Death was just misunderstood, just like Billy and Thea said. So.
I know. He's like,
I heard, or maybe I read somewhere, you actually injured yourself on the set, like one of the first days. Is that accurate?
Well, yes, it is. Because I'm old, and I don't know if you've ever seen the shoes. They have soles like this big.
They're huge.
So that I'm 6 something or other. And the very first take of the very first scene that we shot on Face the Music, I'm doing hopscotch. That's what he's supposed to be doing, hopscotch out in the yard. And I tripped on my robe. It was just a little too long, and I fell and sprained this wrist. My right, I just fell bad on it. I landed on it, and it swole up, and yada yada. They had a break for lunch, and when we came back, we could continue shooting, because I hadn't, I wasn't dead, but but yeah, but I mean, if you look close, my one hand is much bigger than the other hand.
Wow. Well, thank you for playing through. We appreciate that.
What are you gonna do?
Right.
You know.
So we know that recently you were in the Comey Rule. That was most excellent. What was that like playing Michael Flynn?
That was more fun than you might imagine. I don't know what's up with that guy. And I don't think his story is completely written yet. But that was fun to do. I like being. I suppose that falls into I've played military men, I've played generals. I can have that, I can do that authoritarian, no nonsense sort of military dude, and you buy it. But my favorite part was when he's lying to the FBI. I think he's eating a donut at the time, and they intercut it with, they say, "Did you ever talk to him about this?" And he says, "No, I don't think no." And then they cut away to him actually talking to, doing exactly the thing that he said he hadn't done.
Yeah.
That was fun to do. I felt like I was doing my civic duty. Part of what we do as actors is we tell the story of our time. And that's clearly one of the stories of our time. I also do the voices of Mitch McConnell and so on in Our Cartoon President, which is a cartoon show that Stephen Colbert produces. And that was great. I did Jeff Sessions and John Kelly. How's Jeff Sessions? And he was really fun to do, because, well, sometimes being a senator is fun, but it can be very trying at times. And it's just a chance to poke fun at power,
Yeah.
Which is necessary in these times. You have to be able to puncture these pompous fools sometimes,
Yeah, absolutely. So you're obviously very talented at voice work, and you'd done a Fallout game a while back, right? Do you see yourself doing more voice work? I mean, especially in like these weird and uncertain times, or?
Yeah, I'm still doing the Cartoon President voice stuff. I would love to do more voice work. It's fun and it's safe, and you don't have to travel. I sort of have my own setup now.
There's no makeup.
There's no there's no makeup.
What? I've been doing it wrong.
I don't have to dress for it. I don't have to travel anywhere. I would love to do. If anybody out there is listening, I love doing voiceover work. And I've never done a lot of it. Well, I also just did a film. I just finished a film called Shrine. Gosh, I'm a busy actor.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Shrine.
It's a horror movie. It's scary as hell. Screen Gems, Sony thing. We started filming. It's like, I guess, it's hard to say it's like The Exorcist because, but it's in that world.
Okay.
I play a Catholic priest who's got a stepdaughter, he adopts his sister's child, and I don't want to give away. There's real evil hidden on the property of this church, and doesn't end well for some of us.
But any idea when that's scheduled to come out? I mean, I know all release dates are crazy weird right now, so that's a dumb question. I retract it.
I have no idea, but it should be a really good scary film. I'm a sucker for those priests dealing with demons sort of films. And I was raised Episcopalian too. I'm not even Catholic.
Me too.
But I remember when I first saw The Exorcist, it just scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, it's an all-time classic.
Now, I'm not saying this is an all-time classic that we've made, but it might.
Bill Sadler says Shrine is an all-time classic.
It has all the ingredients of a really scary ride. I will say that.
Awesome.
So cool.
Well, I love this time of year because there's always there's so much Bill Sadler we can watch, around Halloween. And speaking of Halloween, last Halloween, my co-host here dressed up as the Grim Reaper when you're in heaven with the with the dress on.
Yeah, I've got the lavender dress.
We'll have to send you a picture.
He Melvined me.
Yes.
There we go.
Oh,
It's on the Zoom now if you can see it.
Oh man,
Dude, that's fantastic.
yeah. This has been phenomenal. We can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk with us. It's been great.
My pleasure. Oh, I should mention I've started a YouTube channel called William Sadler The Kitchen Tapes. If you Google that, The Kitchen Tapes, or William Sadler The Kitchen Tapes, I think that's how you'll find it.
Okay, yeah, we will.
Oh man.
But I tell stories and I sing songs that I wrote, and it's a great way to kill a half hour or so.
Yeah, I'd love to spend time in your kitchen with you. It sounds great.
It's this very kitchen.
Dude, we just talked to death.
Oh man, I was so close to saying, "How's it hanging, Bill?" But I did not, and I don't regret it. I think professionally it was the correct choice, but what a nice guy.
Yeah, I think he would have taken it in stride, like that entire interview. It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
We learned so much. What is blowing my mind here is how much that role in the Tales from the Crypt series did for the rest of his career.
Oh yeah.
Met Joel Silver, ended up in Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Met Frank Darabont, ended up in Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile.
Yeah.
It just incredible how a career can snowball like that. And this guy is a master class actor.
Yeah.
Was in a Neil Simon play, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But to see that type of thing pay off for a guy who's worked so hard is just great.
I mean, yeah, because this isn't one of those overnight success stories. He was working for years. I wouldn't say grinding it out, but doing incredibly thoughtful work on stage for a very long time. And then one conversation, one question that he had the guts to ask, and it turned everything up to 11 for him. And if there's not a lesson there for all of us, then I don't know what there is. So cool, so nice.
How cool was it to hear him talk about working with, legends like Marty Cove and Stephen Lang?
Yeah,
it's great.
And I can't wait to check out those kitchen tapes. That's got to be a lot of fun, right? I mean, if I could just have the opportunity once a week to sit down and chill and listen to Bill Sadler sing me a song or tell me a story, all in. All in.
That's a YouTube series I'm subscribing to.
Yeah.
And our listeners couldn't see it, but on the Zoom call, he was in that same kitchen, and it is a lovely kitchen.
Yeah, it's very, very well put together. He would do great on Room Raider. So, got to thank Michael Eads. He put that together for us.
Dude, he is hitting home run after home run with getting interviews for us. We guys, I'm not going to say any more right now, but these are two happy dudes in the studio right now.
Yeah. Happy enough that we're facing COVID to come in and wear masks and sit behind plexiglass, but just to get in and do this thing right. So kudos to you, Michael. Thank you so much. Thank you. We own this town.
Thank you, Scott Bricklin, and Scooby Tunes Music for the use of Walk Away as our theme song.
Yeah. And, Kelly, be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes. All right, so here you go. Here's our interview with William Sadler. Let's just do this whole intro over again. This fucking blows. Sorry. Can we give it one more shot? Maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
At least we got our tag.
Remember when we made a worse intro than the first one we made?